All right, looks like we are live. Happy Wednesday to everybody. Hope you're having a um, spectacular Wednesday. Let's see if I can pull up the questions. I had some questions left over from yesterday, so I'll start with those and then we'll rock and roll from there. So, here are the questions we had yesterday. And let's see this here. All right, doing like 5 things at once. Today was a good, busy, productive day. I like a productive day. So, we had okay, so the question, we had the last couple questions here. Long story short, what is your best advice for budgeting and creating saving wealth in your early 20s? So the first thing I can tell you is that the sooner you start saving, the more ahead of the game you'll be. And that's just because of the power of compounded interest. So, in fact, do yourself a favor and create a little Excel spreadsheet and create what you can say is, hey, if I'd save $10,000 a year, $5,000 a year, or $2,000 a year, and assuming it's going to make 7%, right? So that 2,000 will make 7%. And do yourself a favor, just spread it out and say, year one, I'm going to make this. And what ends up happening is by year 10, you have this big chunk of spreadsheet where you're making money, not just on that first, let's say 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, but on the interest from that, and on the interest from that, and on the interest from that, all the way down. So that would be my first advice. If you have the opportunity, just so you can see it, right? Because sometimes I think in life, until we can actually see something and experience something, it's not the same thing. It's not tangible to us, right? So having that spreadsheet that we can look at and really appreciate what the power of compounding interest, it helps us make that decision to sacrifice, because that's what saving is. It's sacrificing now for later, right? So prepping Josh, right? I'm taking action against Josh now, and I'm preparing for later Josh, future Josh, as my son taught me. That's what it's called. I like that, future Josh. So that's my first piece of advice, is that just appreciate through seeing for yourself what creating the savings will do for you, helps you save. So that would be the first thing I would say. And the second thing is just what you said. Budgeting is, to me, is a written exercise. So it's an exercise of being able to see the different categories of your spend, see where your money's going, things which are counted, right? And by counting something, you can understand it, and you can track it, and you can take action around it. So that's my first advice. Really have a written budget. Don't have credit cards. I don't think there's any need for credit cards. I think that's just how we get in trouble. If you have a credit card, it has to be paid off every month. If you get to the point where you're not paying off your credit card, that's when you rip up the credit card. It's that simple. Because the last thing you need is another ankle bracelet that's kind of pulling you down, and that's what interest does, right? So just as much as being able to save and have that savings can catapult you into the future, the same issue is going to be with debt, which is just going to hold you back. Because now, instead of saving that, right, to that 20% or 15% or 10%, whatever it is that you're paying in interest, that's a huge chunk of change. And that could be going to savings. So that would be my advice, is that nobody should have a credit card if they can't pay it off, period. It's just not a smart move. If you don't have money, you shouldn't be spending. It's that simple. And I would say having a written budget that has some aspect of play. You need to make sure you have play in your budget, like fun stuff, right? I don't mean just like space, but have fun stuff in your budget, and stick to it. And then make sure you're saving 10 to 20%. Make sure you're taking advantage of a 401k match if you have that at work. That's free money. And then part of that's just spending cash also, besides the fact that you won't overextend yourself if you're using a credit card. Just spending cash, you physically can watch that money slip away, and you can watch that $100 bill become a 50, and then a 20, and then a 10, and then a 1. And it creates some better perspective internally of where your money's going. And I think it's harder to spend. It's more, you can feel it going. Again, back to the tangible example, right? We want things that are tangible because they help us appreciate it. So yeah, so I guess that's what I would suggest to someone in their early 20s. In fact, that's what I'd suggest to anybody who's living to the point that they no longer need to be saving. So, but welcome to another version of Dad Advice. I'm going to go ahead and put some information here in the channel. Here usually 5 o'clock Eastern Standard, and I also started a couple things I'll share with you. Actually, I got to go get today's up here. Kind of stinks because then I got to go back. But sorry, guys. Maybe sometime I'll have a better technology set up here. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in there, which is a couple things. So the first of all, just mentioning that I am here daily at 5. I opened a Reddit, a subreddit, so you can subscribe there. And what I'll try to do is, I'm not going to be here at 5, just since some people do seem to want to be on to hear questions answered. I'm going to try to be respectful and post there that I won't be there. Or I guess people have issues finding my old streams, so I'm just going to post them there every day. And you can also grab them on YouTube. And I don't have a channel name yet, but I'm soon. Thanks to everyone who's kind of subscribed there. I think I'm up to like 70 subscribers, so I got 30 more to go, and then I'll give you a channel name, and you can find me and subscribe there. And finally, I'm putting my number there, 470-575-0111, and I encourage you to call me and talk through what's going on in your life, because I think that's the best way to really work through some harder stuff and get more perspective than we're allowed to do through how this works. Okay, so let's see. Actually, I got some questions here, and actually, I'm just going to go to what we got here: seltzer water. It's all seltzer water, beer, and whiskey for me. That's kind of the if I'm wasting calories, it's going. Actually, I don't drink beer, but it's going to whiskey. All right. So, and Teapot, I did see your question yesterday. I'm sorry. I did want to respond to that. So I think that actually was one of the last couple of questions. As a gay teenager, how do I come out to my parents when I know they're going to disagree with me? So I actually saw that yesterday. And, it's interesting. Like, in general, I'll tell you guys all a little bit about just giving advice, which is the best advice. Well, I give a lot of advice, and it's not always asked for. So I guess it's good that I have, have this, because now I don't have to give advice to my kids, and I have to give advice to my friends. So thank you for the opportunity to give you guys advice. But the first thing I would tell you is talk to your try to find some other gay adults, perhaps maybe on Reddit or something like that, where you can kind of say, hey, what are the best practices, and get perspectives of other people who have done it, right? So again, because I never had to kind of come out to my parents about anything. So I would just say that in general, time we want advice, the best person to get advice from is somebody that's done it before, right? So that's the advice I would actually offer. And speaking of advice, in general, I just hope everybody understands. I give a lot of thoughts out here, have no qualifications other than just being a 45-year-old man that's lived through whatever I've lived through, and I'm sharing the experiences and the lessons I've learned along the way. So, take it with that in mind. And again, the idea is you want to get a lot of advice and then kind of judge for yourself based on your own specifics, especially with a lot of these questions here, where it's just a general question. I can't really, necessarily appreciate all the subtleties. So having said that, my main advice is really talk to other people who've done it, and and learn from that. And as the AMC Fat Boy just said, you didn't think anything of it. It sounds like you particularly know that it is going to be an issue for them. And yeah, so how would I handle that? If I were you, after I've gotten the advice, and the advice, let's assume the advice was you had to come out. which makes sense. I mean, you got to, it's interesting because on the one hand, I want to say, hey, you be you. Right? Who cares what your parents think about it? But on the other hand, our parents matter a lot to us, and it matters what they think of us, especially when we're younger, right? So there's both aspects, and I'll throw it out there just to think of it from that perspective, which is that maybe it's not that important, but it's important to you. So I think I'm struggling because the reaction is what everything depends on, right? And you've already said they're going to disagree with you. I think I would say, and I gave this recommendation to someone the other day. I think I'd go to my parents and say, Mom, Dad, I want to tell you something because our relationship's important to me. But I'm afraid if I tell you this, you're going to disagree with me or maybe be disappointed in me. So I'm going to leave it to you if you'd like me to tell you it or not. And what that allows to happen in the relationship, it allows them to step back. And as opposed to you saying something and them just reacting to it, it gives them the opportunity and say, I don't want to talk about it now. There's no danger. Just think about it. Just make sure that if you say, yes, I want to know what's going, something, that you're committed, Mom and Dad, right? To really, and then you go back to them the next day, if they say yes. So you've given them some voice in the subject. It allows, I think, a little bit of a break. So you're not just throwing something out there and then they're just reacting, but they've already prepared themselves for some news. So I think that might be an effective way to do it in this case. But feel free to come back and share what you've learned, in the chat once you talk to some other people as well and how they advise it. But that would probably be my advice: is give them the option, and then once they've taken that, which I think they will. I think any parent would say, yes, we want to know what's going on. But it allows them to step back, get a little bit anxious. What's going on? What's going on in his life? And then you can kind of say, oh, well, this is what's going on. And you chose, and you guys chose not to get angry with me about it. So it can change maybe a little bit of just the awareness that comes into the situation and the communication that comes into the situation. But good luck. Good luck. Okay. Got another question here, finance. Okay, so if I have money to save, where do I save it? Matched all my 401k and Roth match contributions with my money. I'm not sure I understand the question. Feel free to be a little bit more explicit in what you mean, like what you're trying to accomplish. I'll be happy to talk a little more finance. Sorry, Lenny. Sorry, Lenny. Okay. If you were to talk to yourself at 21, what do you think the conversation would be like, and what would you disagree on with yourself? Yeah, so I always get the question of what would be your advice that you'd give to your 20-year-old self. So this is a really different question, obviously. What do I think the conversation would be like, and what would you disagree on with yourself? What have I fundamentally changed since I was 21? I mean, I think at 21, I used to be a pretty religious person. And, that God created the world and kind of more stoic religious beliefs. And I think, but I think in the back of my mind, I always kind of knew. I didn't grow up that way. It's something I kind of found God in high school. In the back of my mind, I think I always knew that I might not stay there, just because I always had questions around it. So that's the only thing that I'm like, that's maybe something where like I could go and say, hey, Josh, someday you're going to think that, or you're going to realize that it's really not isn't true, true, um, and make some changes in your life. But I think my 21-year-old self would say, yeah, I can kind of see how that could happen. There's not a lot that I can really look at and say, like, go back and say it's a bad idea. I mean, like, even like, so I'm divorced. If anybody's watched before, I think a few of you have. Like, I could go back and say, don't get married, but then I wouldn't have my kids, right? So I don't know that there is anything. I think that's an important maybe lesson that you can take from someone a little bit older, is that even your mistakes have positive outcomes. It set you on paths that have positive outcomes, and things that really seem to be really bad. There's really very little that's absolutely bad or absolutely good in this world. There's always some aspect of good that comes from things, even when they don't go the way we expect them to or we want them to. Um, there's good that comes from it, and so we can just follow that path of goodness. And there's good around us, and we have to choose to see the good, if that's how we want to live our life. So I like the question. I'm sorry I don't have a more creative answer for you. Okay, Indige Queen, thank you for the advice about anxiety the other day. I won't ask any questions to give others a chance to ask their questions, but thank you for everything, Dad. Absolutely, and I hope it was helpful. Actually, I really enjoyed that conversation. Um, okay, so Northern, yeah, if Northern, can you just toss your question back in, and I'll see it now, and we'll get to it here. I have to kind of like shut out of the stream here and then go open the other one, and it's kind of a process, but I'd be happy to do that. Have I ever shoplifted? Um, I mean, not that I remember. I'm trying to think, like, as a kid. I don't think so. Stole some money from my parents once, and I got busted. Stole like $10 from my mom. I bought 20 boxes of Nerds. I don't even know if they still sell Nerds, but and I got busted with the 20 boxes of Nerds, and that was really the only time I ever stole anything. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else like that. I don't think I ever shoplifted. Yeah. I was too anxious. I was too anxious to do stuff that I'd get in trouble over. It just didn't mix well with my anxiety, or just my good boy persona growing up. Hey, hope you're well. Thank you, Mommy S. Hope you're well too. Oh, you know what I forgot to do today? I forgot to do my introduction. What do I mean when I say here, you are beautiful? So, and I actually changed it around a little bit, because I was like, I should talk about this in the middle of the stream as opposed to the beginning. I didn't mean to get this far in, but a couple of like lessons that I like to share that I think are pretty applicable for people, myself included, is to be able to see ourselves every day as a beautiful person, because I think in doing that, it creates a lightness and enables us to walk just a brighter path through life. So the strategy for that is that I want you to view yourself as a whole person. And the idea behind a whole person is that, I'm sure that you, like I, will focus on the one or two negative attributes of myself. Right? I'm this or I'm that, which are negative. The problem in doing that is that we're not being honest. Right? And I think we can all agree that the best way to walk through this world is from a place of honesty and truth and seeing the world for what it is. And so the problem is that if you're only viewing yourself through the one or two negative traits that you have, and not the hundreds and hundreds of positive traits, you're not seeing yourself truly. So it's, instead of looking at the micro, I want you to look at the macro, broaden the perspective, and I want you to really, see yourself as a whole person. And then once you see yourself as a whole person, right, it's a person with a couple flaws and a lot of positives, you can see that in essence, you're a beautiful person, because your beauty will shine through because of all the good that you are. And then the hope is, with that, you can use that beauty to go and change, the world in whatever way is important to you. I'm not suggesting you got to go and change the world, but whatever that means to you, because there's nothing to hold you back, except for how you think, right? And so the hope is that you can change how you think to enable yourself to have whatever success you want in life. And I know you can. I know you can do it. So, okay. Is evolution real? I'm not sure I understand the question, but I would. It seems to be a good hypothesis. So, yeah, you could ask what real is, but it seems to be a good hypothesis that explains um, a lot of what we see in the world. I'm 21 and similar, even a stoic. Are you an atheist now? No, I'm not an atheist. I don't think I'd say that. I think I've changed my definition of God. There's no external God. I think I grew up with this idea that God's out there and there's me, and I'm going to talk to God and ask in prayer for what I want. And I think over time, what I've come to realize is that we're all God, and everything is just kind of the universe is all just kind of one. So, which I think a lot of religions actually go to. They don't necessarily, and they have to, because otherwise they wouldn't work. I think the reason religion works is because they're able to tap into something we sense to be true, and part of that is that oneness. And so, but they kind of externalize it instead of internalize it. So I think I'm an atheist from the perspective of a typical religious Christian or Jew or Muslim. Um, in terms of an orthodox kind of version of them, but maybe not from a more liberal, any of the three of those. So yeah, do you need to get married to have kids? No, certainly not. I know, I mean, certainly not. I think there are a lot of women who are choosing now to have kids on their own, which probably in many ways makes a lot of sense, right? It used to be, well, I'll get married. A lot of women get to maybe 35-ish, and they're like, you know what? Next guy that's breathing, I'm going to have a kid with him. And the problem is that then they're in this miserable relationship with somebody, when really what they wanted was a kid. So have a kid, and then find the guy after that, or maybe not. But so I think people make the mistake, in fact, of progressing. Actually, this is just an important relationship perspective. We'll talk about this for a minute. Which is relationships, what you'll find is they kind of they're like stages of relationships. Let's just think through what they are, right? So it's, you fall in love, you got your lust stage, and then that kind of fades away over the, first year or two, and it gets into the more stable phase of the relationship. And then, if you haven't moved in together, so you move in together, and then you get engaged, and then you get married, and then you have a kid, So, first you actually, I guess, before you get a dog, typically before you get engaged, I guess this is how we do it nowadays. But the point is is that sometimes we say, hey, let's go to the next stage of our relationship instead of breaking up. So I think it's important to recognize that you shouldn't go to the next stage of a relationship. Won't make a relationship better. So, and I might not have clarified exactly what I was trying to say the whole time, but that's the main thing, which is, don't say, hey, you know what, this relationship is not great, but we're just going to take it up a notch to the next stage, whatever that stage is. Rather, examine, and you might have to do the hard work of moving on in the relationship. But back to the question about married having kids. So my answer is absolutely not. I think there are even some fathers now that are having kids that I heard about the other day without a mom involved. So super cool. I think you should have kids when you're, like I've always talked about, when you're financially able to support them and you're emotionally able to support them. That's what you need to have kids. And partners can have, I think you could question, if you're in a partnered relationship and having kids, why you're not getting married. To me, that's a little bit of a, and you take a moment and think about that. Like, why aren't you getting married if you're at that point? There's something very sweet about marriage. And it's also somewhat of a social norm. So if anytime we're not doing something that's a social norm, I think we have to ask ourselves, why is that? Right. And sometimes it's because it comes from a healthy place, and sometimes it comes from a not healthy place. But there's a reason why social norms are social norms. And so I think it's important to kind of look at that. Okay. My dad genuinely hates me. I'm sorry, Samuel. But it's not his fault. I'm a terrible son. What do I do? Thank you for providing this incredible service. So the first thing I would ask is how do you know that he hates you? I think that sometimes, actually, can you guys, I'm not going to do this exactly. It's my daughter. I got to take the call. So I'm going to take the call and we'll see what happens. And I may be back, but I got a dad. I'll be right back. Hey, kiddo. What? Hold on, I can't hear you. 1 second. What, kiddo? 7. You got it. Love you. No problem. Bye-bye. All right. Let's see if we make it back. I don't know if we're back or not. If you guys can see me, do you mind throwing that down in the chat? So I know my phone says we're still going, but it could be we're disconnected. So let's see here. I'm going to reopen it. Let's see what happens. Oh, all right, good. I'm back. Cool. Yeah, life gets in the way sometimes. Okay, cool. So where was I? I was up here somewhere. I'll pull back up. And oh, right, we're talking about the person, Samuel, whose dad hates him. It's not his fault. I'm a terrible son. So look, man. The first thing I would say is, I wouldn't assume that he hates you. I think that's something you're assuming. And I mean, I would say it's as simple as just saying, write a note, Dad, I love you. That's all you got to do. I have some beautiful notes right here, just sitting right here. In fact, I'm going to share with you. I don't know if I can do that. That might be, not something my kids would want, but just give them a little note. Dear Dad, I love you, son, whatever your name is. It's as simple as that. So I just kind of throw that out there. If you can do that, it'd be a huge gift. And just say, just have a conversation with them. My gut is that if you have some stuff to apologize for, apologize, and it'll heal everything. That's my gut. And it's probably not your fault. It's not all your fault. It's never all your fault. But we can always change. I mean, that's the cool thing. Let's just take a moment and talk about that for a minute, because that's such a huge aspect of life, is that who we were yesterday is not who we have to be today. Right? There's a huge freedom in that. So if you want to see yourself as a terrible son, that's who you were until today. And you know what today you are? You're an amazing son today. Right? And everything that was is no longer. Because that's what the world allows us to do. We get to wake up every day and make a choice to be good or bad, whatever that's defined as. But we get to choose, and that constant choice, in my mind, is really a way to vacate everything that's become before. And I know you can talk about maybe, well, what if you killed somebody, whatever. But the reality is, for 98% of things, and we could even argue that 2%, we can literally wake up in the next day, and we can change who we are, and it's tremendous freedom. We're not tied down to just because we did something yesterday that we have to do it today. I can't stress that enough, and I can't believe push that over to you enough. So, because otherwise it can be trapping, right? I hear in your text, right? It's you're trapped by your reality. But you don't have to be. You can change that reality by stopping. So I'd encourage you to do that, and let us all know how it works out. Okay. I'm going to throw in, let's see what we got here. Everybody has this chair. It's a great chair. So how do I tell my girlfriend her weight gain is a turnoff and concerning? Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. How do we tell somebody, right? Because at the end of the day, relationships are about acceptance, right? And so how do we do it when acceptance gets in the way of maybe what we're attracted to? So the first thing I would kind of ask is their weight gain because of stress, right? So do you understand where the weight gain's coming from, right? Is it just because she's letting herself go is different than if she's in a stressful space, right? Or sure, an anxious space or whatever, right? I think we, right? So, and that's a time when, as a boyfriend, it's a time for grace. And you'd have a different conversation if it's just she's kind of let herself go. I think an approach, and assuming that's just and that's my advice, is that you really first got to be curious around why is she changing, right? Anytime a behavior changes, you want to be curious about why that behavior is changing. So that would be kind of the first thing is try to get some awareness around what's going on. And then the response is going to be different, based on what you find out. So if you're finding out, well, she's just eating because she's stressed, well, maybe you can say, hey, look, how can I help you with your stress level? I see you're stressed. Like, just help her with that, and don't worry about the temporary weight gain aspect of things. If it's just that she's letting herself go, then I think to some extent it depends where you are in the relationship. But hopefully you have an open enough relationship that you can say, I'm really working hard here to keep myself looking good for you. And how can you do that to kind of, it's important. Our relationship's important. I want to make sure that I'm always attracted. And this is, as sad as it is an important thing to me. So I just wanted to make you aware of it, right? Because you have to make her aware, because otherwise things can go down, right? You can no longer be attracted, and then things can break up. And it's something that could have been avoided by talking, having that hard conversation. I'm not saying it's going to be an impossible conversation, but I do think it is the right conversation. I'm a big talker, man. Good luck me doing any of these things, but I can tell you what the right thing to do is. All right. How did you meet your partner? Actually, right now I'm not dating anybody, but I dated just in dating sites, and you meet people around. So that's kind of how I've met most of the people I've dated in the last since I got divorced. I got divorced about 9 years ago. So since then, you meet people on same places. You guys probably are meeting them. Just all the basic dating sites for dads. There's the dad dating site, I guess, right? Should I leave her? She cheated on me, but I love her so much. So I know that's impossibly hard, smudbuggin, and I'm really sorry. What I would like you to know is that I think, from what I've seen, is that cheating's indicative of where a relationship really is. So some people are able to be strong and just leave a relationship, and other people aren't. They're just not strong enough. And so cheating will kind of be one of the things that'll be the outcome for different reasons. But I think at the end of the day, relationships are about trust, and it'd be about feeling secure in your relationship. And ultimately, only you are going to be able to answer if you can gain back. First of all, is she interested in staying in the relationship? And then can you work through the trust issues that she's brought up through therapy? And that's the only way to do it. Because I don't, and I know you love her, and right? We're addicted to the people that we're in partnership with. And especially I think as we're younger and we, maybe if it's been our first experience, or even if it's been, we met when we were young, and, when these relationships come to an end, it's much more difficult than I think as we get older and had the experience happen a few times. But the reality is that, first of all, you have to figure out why she cheated on you. And it's got to be in therapy. I don't think you can really work through something like this not in therapy. So if there's no opportunity for therapy, my gut would be that's a sign that it's time to move on. And if there is therapy, then I think you can try to work it through, and try to understand where were the issues and can we fix the issues. So, and then some of this also is how old you are. And then the other thing I just throw out there is make sure you realize that just because one person cheated on you doesn't mean that someone else will. And to have some faith in the world, that there are people that actually are maybe a little bit more emotionally mature, and when they're ready for a relationship to end, they step up and they end the relationship. But I'm really sorry. Is it normal to fall in and out of love with your partner? Absolutely. Absolutely normal. That's part of the natural occurrence in a relationship, is that we fall into lust, then we fall into love, and then we all kind of grow in different directions. And the hope is that we can keep some core love going as that happens. But that's not easy. It takes work. And you have to continuously, I think love is like a garden. You have to continuously water it. And you have to continuously nurture it if you want it to keep growing. So, but absolutely, it's totally normal to fall in, to fall out, and you have to choose to stay in. Okay. I don't remember if there's someone I said I'd talk to their question about. But, I don't think we'll get everything here anyway. Oh, okay, fine. Okay. My dad is really sick. In hospital since February. I can barely talk to him on the phone since he mostly sleeps. How do I prepare for the moment he has to leave us? So I'm really sorry, obviously, that your dad's in the process of passing. I would see if you can go visit, even with Corona. If I don't know if they'll let you in, maybe they won't. But I do think that could be a powerful thing if they'll let you in. So how do you prepare for a moment of death? Well, the nice thing is that you get the time to prepare. I think a lot of times people are ripped out from us, and we don't have that opportunity to prepare. So consider yourself lucky that you do have that. But I do think being able to go and seeing him and whisper whatever you want him to know while he's still here could be very powerful. So if that's at all possible, I'd encourage you to do that. And then from there, I think what you'll find is that in some ways, when you know someone's passing and then they pass, it's easier because you've had to go through a lot of the emotions. It's not going to be easy, but it kind of forces you through a certain process when they're sick. So there's a lot of the grief stages which you're already kind of working through and dealing with. But I don't think we can ever. There are certain things I don't know that we can prepare for moments like that. But if he's talking, I mean, I just try to be over there as much as I could. That would be my advice. Figure out how you can do that. And I'm really sorry. That's tough. Okay. Hey, Dad, is it wise to leave my current night shift job to improve my health, even without a replacement job? Or should I stay and let my health suffer? Well, my friend, that's a tough one, and I can't answer that. I can give you some things to think about, which are that I really think it's very difficult to leave a job until you have a job. Um, and I think that your health can suffer. And like you have to know yourself. Like, how will you be if you don't have any money? Right? Would your health still be suffering? So then you're just moving from a health suffering to a health suffering issue. So my initial thought is, and just in general in life, the advice I give to everybody here is it's never wise to leave a job until you have your other job. Literally, this is your start date. That's when you leave a job. That's the only time you want to leave a job. Here, I hear that you're saying that it's hurting your health. I'm not sure what about the night shift job is hurting your health. That would probably impact how I thought about things. But I do think that the outcome could be that you're just jumping from one health issue to another because the stress of not having a job, and then you don't get unemployment. I don't believe when you're not working. Um, so yeah, just I'd think hard about that before you did that. Let's see here. All right, so yes, I got another minute here that I'm going to go. I have to go, but I am here every day, pretty much at 5 Eastern, and I'll put this all up in here again. Actually, let's see if it's still there. Um, so I'm here typically most days 5 Eastern. I started the VDAD subreddit where I'll try to post these after I do them so people can find them easily, and you can talk about what we talk about in there a little bit. And then I also put my YouTube channel there, and I need about 30 more people to subscribe over there so I can name it and make it easier for people to find. And then I'll stop mentioning that. But it's something I would like to do. So if you can help me with that, please do. Also, if I've given you advice that helped you today, please just say thank you. And I do read through all of the comments here afterwards usually, and we'll try to answer whatever I didn't get to today at the beginning of tomorrow's stream. So you can check that out tomorrow, either live or as a rewind. So just to finish things off, I'm going to go back to what I typically open with because I just think it's so important. And I think we each need an opportunity to see ourselves as beautiful people. And I want you to see yourself just for a moment as a beautiful person. I want you to see yourself as a whole person. I don't want you to focus on the one or two negatives, but rather the hundred, amazing aspects of yourself. See yourself as a whole person. See yourself as beautiful. Take that moment to feel your inner energy and get in touch with yourself, feel a little bit grounded, and be able to kind of just like take on the world because this is your world. The world centers around you. Let's not lose sight of that. Of course, we each think that, right? But at the end of the day, you have to realize that your world, your 90 to 100 years, is yours. And I don't mean it from an egotistical perspective. I want you to not be an egotistical person. I want you to be a giving person to the world. But I think most of us have kind of the opposite approach, or maybe people that watch my stream, where they don't fully appreciate how amazing they are and how awesome they are and how beautiful they are. So please, do yourself that favor. Take a moment right now, wherever you are, doing whatever you're doing, and sit back and say, hey, this is what I'm bringing to the world. This is the beauty that I'm bringing to the world. And I'm going to do that too. And, until we chat again, I hope all is well with all of you.